It lasted less than 3 minutes. Nobody called time. No medical staff rushed onto the field with a stretcher. No announcer broke the broadcast to explain what was happening. And yet, every person inside that stadium who caught a glimpse of it felt something shift, a warmth that had no business existing inside the cold, competitive machinery of a professional baseball game. Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto walked toward Miguel Rojas. Not as teammates performing an obligation. Not as stars condescending to offer sympathy. But with something quieter and far more deliberate, a method, a touch, a knowledge passed down through generations of Japanese athletic culture that most people in that stadium had never seen applied in real time on a Major League Baseball field. Rojas didn't leave the game. He stayed. He finished. And when the moment was over, the images that spread across the internet didn't come from the highlight reel. They came from the phones of fans who recognized, instinctively, before they could even articulate why, that they had witnessed something that mattered. This is the story of what happened. And more importantly, this is the story of why it happened. To understand what Ohtani and Yamamoto did, you first have to understand the situation Rojas was in when they approached him. Miguel Rojas is not a player who shows pain easily. He is a veteran. A professional in the truest sense of the word, the kind of player who understands that staying on the field is itself a form of contribution, that grinding through discomfort is part of the unspoken contract between a player and his team. He has played through things that would sideline less disciplined athletes. His teammates know this about him. His coaches know this about him. So when Rojas showed visible signs of distress during the game, the kind of discomfort that even the most guarded competitor cannot fully conceal, it registered immediately. Not just with the dugout. With Ohtani. With Yamamoto. With two players who, despite operating at the absolute peak of baseball's global hierarchy, noticed a teammate struggling and did not look away. What they did next was not instinct alone. It was informed instinct, the product of a physical culture that treats the human body as something to be understood deeply, managed precisely, and supported communally. Most Western sports medicine operates within a framework of intervention, ice, compression, elevation, rest. These are effective tools, and modern MLB training staffs apply them with tremendous sophistication. But Japanese athletic culture carries an additional layer of physical knowledge that predates modern sports science by centuries. Rooted in practices drawn from traditional Japanese medicine, concepts of pressure points, energy pathways, and the relationship between muscle tension and pain response, the approach that Ohtani and Yamamoto applied to Rojas is not mystical. It is precise. It targets specific areas of the body where tension accumulates under physical stress, applying controlled pressure in a way that interrupts the pain signal and allows the muscle or joint to reset. Japanese professional baseball players are introduced to versions of this method early in their development. It is part of the physical education that runs alongside technical training. How to warm the body correctly before explosive movement. How to read the signals a joint sends before it becomes an injury. How to use touch, a teammate's hands, applied with knowledge and intention, to give a struggling body a few more innings. Ohtani has spoken in various contexts about his belief in the integration of traditional physical wisdom with modern athletic science. His preparation systems, the dietary discipline, the recovery protocols, the meticulous attention to his body's feedback, draw from both streams simultaneously. Yamamoto, who made his own journey from Japanese professional baseball to the major league stage, carries the same foundational education. When they saw Rojas in pain, they did not reach for an ice pack. They reached for something older and, in that specific moment, more immediately useful. Those close enough to observe the interaction described it with a consistency that is striking given how briefly it lasted. Ohtani positioned himself beside Rojas with a focus that his teammates recognize from the way he approaches his own preparation, fully present, unhurried despite the pace of the game around him. Yamamoto flanked the other side. Together, without dramatics, without performance, they worked. The specific technique involved the application of firm, controlled pressure to points along the forearm, the shoulder junction, and the upper back, areas that accumulate tension during the repetitive throwing and fielding motions of a baseball game. The pressure was not aggressive. It was measured. And it was applied with the kind of quiet authority that only comes from genuine knowledge, not imitation. Rojas's response was visible to those watching closely. The rigidity in his posture, the held breath, the protective tension that the body builds around pain, began to release. Slowly. Then more noticeably. A teammate nearby later said that the change in Rojas's face was the clearest sign that the expression he had been carrying for several minutes simply softened. He rolled his shoulder. He tested his grip. He looked at Ohtani, then at Yamamoto, and said something that the cameras did not catch but that the people around him heard. Then he stayed in the game. By the time the game ended, the moment had already begun its journey across the internet. It started with a single video clip, shaky, shot from the stands on a phone, the kind of footage that sacrifices image quality for immediacy. But the content was unmistakable. Two of baseball's most recognized global figures, crouched beside a teammate, hands moving with purpose and care, in the middle of a game that neither paused nor acknowledged what was happening on that patch of field. The comment sections filled in languages that had nothing to do with baseball's traditional geography. Japanese, Korean, Spanish, Portuguese, Indonesian. People who might not have been able to name the score of the game or the inning it happened in responded to the image of two men helping a third with a recognition that crossed every cultural boundary. What they were responding to, beneath the baseball context, was something universal. The sight of expertise offered freely. Of knowledge used not for personal advantage but for a teammate's relief. Of two players who had every reason to stay focused exclusively on their own performance, choosing instead to direct their attention, their time, and their skills towards someone else's pain. In Japan, the reaction carried an additional layer of meaning. The practices Ohtani and Yamamoto drew from are not exotic to a Japanese audience, they are familiar, embedded in physical education, in team sports culture, in the way athletes at every level are taught to support one another. Seeing those practices appear on an American baseball field, applied by two of Japan's most celebrated athletic exports, produced a pride that was specific and deeply felt. Coaches and former players who commented publicly noted the precision of what was applied. This was not a gesture. This was knowledge in action. The easy narrative around Shohei Ohtani focuses on the numbers. The home runs. The pitching lines. The contract. The records that accumulate with a regularity that has stopped surprising people only because the alternative, being surprised every time, would be exhausting. But the players who share a clubhouse with him consistently point to something different when asked to describe what makes him valuable beyond the statistics. They point to his attention. To the fact that despite the weight of global expectation that follows him into every park, every city, every at-bat, he notices people. He is present with his teammates in a way that fame and pressure frequently erode in athletes of his stature. This moment with Rojas is consistent with that testimony. Ohtani did not wait to be asked. He did not send a trainer as a proxy. He walked over himself, with Yamamoto beside him, and did something useful. Yamamoto, who is in the earlier stages of his major league journey, has spoken carefully about the challenge of transitioning not just between leagues but between cultures. The rhythms of an MLB clubhouse are different from the NPB environment where he built his career. But what this moment demonstrated is that the values Yamamoto carried across the Pacific, the team-first orientation, the respect for physical knowledge, the instinct to support rather than observe, made the journey intact. Together, in those 3 minutes beside Rojas, they were not performing Japaneseness for an American audience. They were simply being who they are, in the way they know how to be, for a teammate who needed it. There is a larger story underneath this one, and it would be a mistake to miss it. Major League Baseball is in the middle of a transformation that its own leadership has acknowledged but not fully mapped. The globalization of the sport, the arrival of players from Japan, Korea, the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Cuba, and beyond, is not simply a talent pipeline story. It is a cultural exchange that is changing the texture of the game in ways that statistics cannot capture. The Japanese influence, in particular, carries a depth that goes beyond individual star power. The preparation philosophies, the physical education traditions, the team culture values that players like Ohtani and Yamamoto embody, these are entering the American game not through a press release or a league initiative, but through moments exactly like the one with Rojas. A veteran American player experiencing a traditional Japanese pain relief method, applied by two Japanese teammates, in the middle of a Major League Baseball game, and staying on the field because of it. That is cultural exchange in its most functional and honest form. No ceremony. No announcement. Just knowledge moving across a boundary because someone needed it and someone else had it to give. The fans who filmed it and shared it understood this before anyone put it into words. That is why the clip traveled. That is why it landed in countries where baseball is a minor sport at best. The content of the moment was bigger than the game it happened inside. After the game, Rojas spoke briefly about the moment. He did not offer a detailed medical analysis. He did not go deep into the specifics of what Ohtani and Yamamoto did or how it worked. What he said was simpler and, because of its simplicity, more affecting. He said he was grateful. That in a moment when his body was telling him one thing, his teammates told him something different, that he was not alone in it, that there was knowledge available to him that he had not known to ask for, and that it worked. He finished the game. That was the proof. And in baseball, where staying on the field is its own language, where the ability to push through and contribute is one of the deepest forms of respect a player can show for his team and his craft, finishing the game said everything that needed to be said. It was the product of who Ohtani is, a player whose physical knowledge runs as deep as his talent, and who applies both without being asked. It was the product of who Yamamoto is, a young ace carrying an entire tradition of athletic wisdom into a new baseball world. And it was the product of what teammates, at their best, actually do for one another. Not the spectacular. Not the highlight. The quiet, precise, human thing. The thing that no broadcast was prepared to cover but that 1,000 phones caught anyway, because the people in that stadium recognized, without being told, that they were watching something worth keeping. Baseball gave them the setting. Ohtani and Yamamoto gave them the moment. And Rojas, by staying on that field, gave it its ending.